My questions deal with efficiency, and you obviously have a great interest in that topic, and you've talked about it already. We know that resources are limited, and we know we need to make smart decisions. Do you think that strategic planning would be an option for the city to help move those goals along?
Yes, it would. The city has for years had a comprehensive development plan, and it now has the Atlanta Strategic Action Plan, which replaced that. And that plan is reviewed on an annual basis and on a 5-year rolling basis. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. But if there's a particular place you want to be, you should plot a map to get there. And that's what a strategic plan would do for you. We should not leave it to chance as to how we're going to get where we're going and where we're going to end up. So yes.
When I think about strategic planning and some of the comments you've made, I think a lot of the problems you talk about have to do with relationships among people in the city and outside possibly. And that's one area where I think strategic planning could help, as opposed to maybe a comprehensive plan that might be done more in a planning department rather than bringing people together as a strategic plan would. Have you had any thoughts about that, how to build relationships among people who need to make the city better?
Many of Atlanta's problems go beyond its boundaries. Atlanta can't solve it alone. Water's an issue, transportation is an issue, and many others. In order to be the competitor that it needs to be in this global economy, Atlanta cannot proceed on its own, and so it must cooperate, collaborate with surrounding jurisdictions, and in order to do that. It has been predicted that this country is headed towards becoming 11 mega regions, and Atlanta is going to be in one of those regions, and Atlanta would be a leader in that region. In order for us to remain competitive globally, we must cooperate, collaborate with surrounding jurisdictions in this state and regionally beyond this state. Our competition today is not Charlotte or Tampa or even New York, it's Beijing and Tokyo. And so for us to be successful and competing in that arena, the better planning we do on a regional basis will serve us well. And I agree with you, because if you can get people talking about a strategic plan that incorporates their area, then you can move them to, instead of the interchange of just relationships, their own enlightened self-interest. And as you go through that process, you're much more likely to have people focus on the substantive issues than personalities, for instance. Mm-hmm. And it allows for people to come together around concepts as opposed to likes and dislikes in people.
And of course, we need to keep things working well inside the city itself. And one way to do that is to use more performance measurement. And are there any specific areas in the city that you think we could enhance or add performance measures that would make a major difference?
Yes, sir. You name the department, that's where we need it. My notion of how we really deal with the situation we're in is to bring in professionals who are committed to public service, who are competent, who are independent, and hold them accountable. And the way you hold them accountable is to set a standard for performance, and performance metrics will allow you to do that. I will bring in a COO who's steeped in public administration to help run the city. A CFO who is committed, who's independent, who's competent, who's a CPA. I will hire department heads who are the same: independent, competent, committed public servants. We will set the measurements or the goals for performance, and then we will measure what they've done against the goals that were set. And so I'd be all in favor of doing that, because unless you're measuring, you don't know what you're achieving or whether or not you're achieving what you set out to achieve. You can't tell whether or not you're being efficient unless you measure what the components that would make you efficient. So yes, performance metrics is.
Do you think the city has the analytical capacity? Obviously, hiring a CAO in public administration sounds great to a public administration professor. But on the whole, do you think the city has the staff capacity to do the kinds of analyses that you'd like to see done?
There used to be a lot of complaint about the size of the city's workforce. And in 2002, the Bain & Company study said Atlanta was very high, both in terms of number of employees per 1,000 residents, as well as the cost being spent on employees. The mayor in her 2009-2010 budget proposal suggested that we were somewhere around in the general fund about 3,600, 3,700 employees, as opposed to what was there when she came on. Other information I got said we were about 4,000 people. When I become mayor, Atlanta will be about right-sized. My job will be to make sure that it's right positioned. And if you look at watershed management as an example, a department that has a $4 billion capital improvements program, they don't do any of their initial cost estimating in-house. None of their initial cost estimating is done in-house because they don't have the expertise to do it. They don't do actual to budget as often as they should, and to the extent that they do, they hire outside consultants to do it because they don't have the capacity in-house. There's nobody in that department who's responsible with respect to these very large capital improvement projects. There's nobody in-house who's responsible for project delivery from beginning to end. There may be areas in-house in the city of Atlanta where you have adequate analytical capacity. There are areas I know that do not. And to the extent that you do not, then we would bring it in. Now, you then get into the argument or discussion of, is it better to bring it in-house or to outsource it? Is it cheaper? Is it more efficient to bring it in than to outsource it than do it in-house? Well, that's an analysis that must be pursued. And to the extent that it makes sense to outsource, then perhaps that's something you do. But my first preference will be to bring in-house the expertise that we need to do the job that needs to be done in the most efficient, cost-effective fashion. And that would mean increasing the analytical capacity inside city government.
And what you say, I see a logic to in that it's a knowledge job. People need to be thinking about what they're doing and trying to do things in the best possible way. How do you build that kind of culture in the city government, or do you think we have it now? I would gather no from your comments, but how do we move to a culture of thinking about doing the job correctly?
There are lots of effective, hard-working employees in city government. Not all of them, like any place else, but there are a lot of people who are hard-working, competent people. I know because I work with them. So what I will do as mayor is support the ones who are like that and replace the ones who are not. The culture starts at the top. You set the tone at the top. You set the tone by how you operate the mayor's office, by the COO that you bring in, by the CFO that you bring in, by the department heads that you bring in, and how you hold them accountable. Now, I will tell you that you must also be inclusive of the rank and file employees with respect to their input. Since I've been in this race, I can't count the number of times that I've been approached by employees of the city working in various departments with talking about the problems in the department, suggesting solutions that don't get implemented, don't even get heard because no one listens.